I've been here this afternoon and listened to my colleagues, and I appreciate all their input. And it's concerning to me that this is such a partisan exercise of tax reform because everybody knows we had to reform our tax code. In fact, every witness here has said on the international side it's absolutely essential that we became competitive again. And even for small businesses, I got to tell you, my experience is very different than what I've been hearing from my friends on the other side of the aisle, which is that all over Ohio, small businesses are benefiting from this. Mr. Cranston talked about it. But, you know, PNC Bank does a survey every year. They've done one for 9 years in Ohio. They've never seen the levels of optimism as high among small and medium-sized businesses. NFIB, which represents the smaller businesses we talked about earlier, they've never seen more interest in investing. I mean, in the history of their survey, and they see now. In terms of this issue of optimism, again, they're seeing it off the charts. Now, that's because small businesses are taking advantage of this. And to the comments earlier about how complicated this is, I think Senator Cardin got it right. You had to do something. We knew the corporate rate had to come down to be competitive, highest in the world, the international system, and you would have had this huge disparity between the C corporation rate, you know, which employs about half of American workers, but is only about 10% of the companies, and the pass-through rate, which is the subchapter S, the pass-throughs and the sole proprietors, all them, which is all our small businesses, which is the vast majority of businesses. So you had to do something. And it's tough to make these decisions, but 1202 is what they used, to Senator McCaskill's point, which was part of law for a long time, Internal Revenue Code, and 1202 says that, yeah, if you're providing a professional service, then you're not going to get the same benefit under Section 199, which is really what the 20% was meant to deal with. Also, for smaller businesses, talked about earlier, people said, well, these businesses average in my state are only make $50,000 a year. Well, if you're under $315,000 a year, you're not subject to any of that complexity. So I would just tell the small businesses out there that are truly small, you know, you're not subject to a lot of what we heard about here today in terms of the complexity. Finally, this notion that if you make $1 million a year, that means you must be really rich. If you're a small business, you may not be because it's a pass-through. In other words, if your business is making $1 million a year and you're the sole shareholder, you're making $1 million a year. Even though I would say, Mr. Cranston, in your case, I'm not a good lawyer because I shouldn't be asking questions I don't know the answer to, but I would guess that you used your dividend from your company to pay your taxes, and the rest of it got reinvested in the business. Is that right?
That's correct.
Did you hear what he said? I didn't know what his answer was going to be. In other words, I don't know what your earnings were. Maybe they're $1 million last year in your businesses, so you're a millionaire. Congratulations. What did you get out of it? Whatever your salary was. You got nothing else out of it because you used it to pay your taxes. The rest you reinvest in the business. And, you know, I grew up in a small business like that. It was also a material handling business like yours. My dad started with 5 people. My mom was the bookkeeper. Lost money the first few years. We struggled, but you know what? Finally found our niche. But that's what we did. We put the money back in the business. So my dad might have looked like a millionaire to some, but he sure didn't feel like it because the $1 million was just a reflection of what the business made that year, not what he was making. And that's the way our tax system works. So I just hope that we, as we're looking at this, we try to be fair and look at what's really happening out there. I've done 15 visits now with small businesses around Ohio. We've had another half dozen roundtables with small businesses. I can't find a one who's not saying this is good for them. I can't find one. So I guess I would ask a question to Mr. Holtz, because he's been on the spot here today about, you know, how does this pay for itself or not? If you have better economic growth because of these tax cuts and the tax reforms, and the reforms are, I think, equally important, if not more important, for investment, how much new growth would you have to be able to pay for, in essence, the $1 trillion that was in this tax cut? How much more growth over 10 years?
If you were to get a half a percentage point, probably 4/10, you could...
4/10 or a half percentage point. What did we just learn for this year? What did CBO just say for this year?
They marked it up by a full 1.2%.
1.3%, from 2% to 3.3%.
3.3.
Not 0.4, not 0.5. Now, I'm not saying it's going to continue for the next 10 years for sure. Nobody can tell you that, even though CBO has projections. They have to make them. But I really do believe in my heart that if this thing works the way it was intended to, which I see happening over my state, that 0.4% or 0.5% even is absolutely within the realm of possibility. In fact, I think it's much more likely to happen than the way around. No, there's a difference in the economic growth. There's going to be at least that much. So I just got to tell you, if you look at the CBO report recently, a lot of people have talked about it today. You didn't hear that full expensing, they said, will increase tangible investment in the United States. They said tax reform alone is going to result in 1.1 million new jobs over the next 10 years. And they also said the growth rate for the last 2 quarters last year went up. I think largely because of expectation of some of these pro-growth policies, including, I think, reg reform too, but 0.4% to 2.6%. And this year, they just increased it from 2% to 3.3%. All right, I'm getting close to the end of my time, so I'm going to follow the edict that I've asked some other people to do and come back for the second round. But I do think we need to be sure that we're looking at this in terms of the real-world impact and what's happening, certainly in my state among small businesses.